live radio, local podcasts, the Frederick Podcast Network at listenfrederick.com.
The Fedora Files.
Hello and welcome to the Fedora Files. I am Gregory Fedora, and with me today I have an amazing guest, Dustin Grammer of Moonlight Monster Media, and he also has a new book that he has written, and it's out. It's on Amazon. It is called Dirt Road Tales of Horror, and it looks amazing. And if you are into cryptids, mysteries, murders, monsters, and whatnot, you are going to dig it. And I'm so glad he's here and he can tell us about it. But first off, I want to know, Dustin, how did you get into the whole like monster and horror stuff? I always find it interesting to find out how people delve into the dark side and what drew you to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me on this show. I've been excited about this week. Good pleasure to meet you as well.
Oh yeah, you too.
I've seen some of your work on Facebook. Other people have shared. But yeah, like the monsters, the dark side stuff. It's funny that you asked that question, because the more I've been asked that lately since I've been into writing the book and all, you start to remember little nuances throughout your life that you forgot, like little influences that led to it. But I'd have to say the earliest accounts were like going to my great grandmother's house when I was very young, and Pepsi and Doritos did the whole monster mash, like the Frankenstein, Wolfman, Dracula on the Doritos and the Pepsi. And between that, she probably told me some stuff. I remember through the years, my dad has always been a pretty good storyteller. Yeah. So the other thing I can think of is there was this book in the library. The elementary school library had a pretty good selection of books, but I remember one in particular that covered different monsters, I think, throughout the world. The Yeti, Loch Ness Monster was in there, and it had pictures, but I remember Bigfoot was also in the book, and I remember his picture. It was like kind of illuminated, like his face, like maybe he was near a firelight, and it was just really creepy. And I haven't been able to find this book since I've been an adult. It's like it only existed at that school library, but I would like read it out on the front porch, and it would just, man, it kind of just scared me. When I was young, I used to have such an active imagination that it just, stuff like that would really work me over. So I think that was the foundation. And then there were, different instances growing up, like going to my best friend's house, and his mom would tell us all these ghost stories and Bigfoot stories that were supposed to be local to our area.
Mm-hmm.
I think that laid a pretty good foundation.
Yeah.
Of getting into this stuff.
Yeah, I think I had the same book, because I remember the picture you're describing. I think I've talked to I've had other people on the show, and we've all had this book, and none of us can find it now. Like, we recall what it was about, some of the pictures, and we can't find it. It's almost like a Mandela effect. Like, we know it existed, but no one seems to remember, or can find it. It's like, it was like a Scholastics book or something. I remember that, and that's all I remember. I'm like, dang it. It's kind of what got me into the stuff too. It was the same thing. But so now you those kind of drew you in, but then later in life, what made you like this book that you've written? What was the desire to write all the stories down? Was there what made you decide, you know what, I'm going to take this on? Because that's kind of a big feat to take on, to chronicle the stories and that you have.
Yeah, so that goes way back too. I've always been interested in trying to write well, probably since I was about 10 or 11 years old. I really liked creative writing in school, and at one point I was writing little short stories based off of a class project we did, but it escalated. I kept writing more sequels to the story, and the teacher would let me read them after lunch, but they were sword and sorcery type stories. Mm-hmm. All through my teen years, I just mulled over these ideas for stories. I would start a story or start a book or a novel or something, never finish it. I would get a few chapters in, or I would change the idea, or life would happen, and I'd move on and pick up with a different idea later. So it was something I've always wanted to do, but in the last couple of years, starting with the Steve's Ridge movie and then this book, it's like the first time I've ever really just completed big projects. But these were just some of these stories. They were things I came up with at a younger age. Like me and my brother used to walk the dirt road near our house and tell each other stories. So I know one of the stories in here dates back to that time. And then most of these others, it's just stuff I either made up recently or just over the last couple of years, just thought, man, that'd make a good ghost story. That'd be a good horror story. And I was, sat down with the intention of, I talked a lot with a Raph from, Let's Find Out with Diego. And, we were bouncing ideas back and forth. And I thought about doing like an audio YouTube channel at one time. And by the time I started writing all the notation, all my notes and summaries down, I figured if I'm going to put this much work into, I'm already writing, I might as well write the whole book. And, I figured if I was going to do, audio, video or something, I have an accent. So I was like, well, I better keep them all in the Southeast. So all this, it's 19 short stories and they're all based in the Southeastern states. So that's briefly how that came about.
So now you've made them up, but like, are any of them like based off of anything, like some of your have you had any kind of creepy experiences that have kind of molded these stories in your life?
Yeah, there's one really, I mean, I think there's several here. If I were to look, if I was to look at the table of contents, because I'm holding it right here so I can keep it for reference. And I know there is one that was based out of, like, I was writing this book last spring. So late April is, me and my wife's anniversary. So we had just gone to a little cabin for the weekend, just nothing too big. Just, we didn't this year, to have as little stress as possible. So no long road trips, no activity. Like we just went out in the middle, like picked a spot in the middle of absolute nowhere in northern Alabama and just spent the weekend. Well, when we were there, like odd things were happening around the cabin, and I based one of the stories off of that. So like when you're reading, if you were to read this book and you read the story Dead Flowers, there were incidents at the cabin where like me and my wife did arrive there in the pitch dark, like there was no light. And so we couldn't see the surrounding landscape. And we go inside and we're kind of unpacking our bags or whatever, and this little dog just pops up, scares the crap out of my wife. At one point, about an hour into us getting there, we're sitting on the back porch, and through the woods in the distance, we started hearing like organ music with the sound of drums beating, and it sounded like a guy on a microphone and a PA system. I mean, like, and there was a barn not too far away, and there was a light that kept cutting on and off in it. Like, so these things are in the story, and a lot of this stuff is fictional, but that actually happened. Now, there wasn't, I can't give away the plot of the story.
Yeah, don't do that.
But not all of it happened, but that laid the foundation for that. And that come to find out, I think there was like a church camp that was like 2 miles down the road. So that explained the music with the organs and the drummers, but that was true. There were some, some of the stories, the locations are based off of actual locations I've been. Like there's one that takes place near the river, one that takes place in an old house with Civil War history around it. So those are, I just, like I'm sure all authors do, they take elements from their actual real life to influence story writing. So that's how that went, some of that.
Oh yeah, no, that's that. I mean, I think that's kind of funny. The church camp that, like when you're alone in the woods and it's dark and they could be singing praise songs, but when you're alone in the dark, it's not, doesn't sound like praise songs. And it's like,
No,
it can be
it
super creepy. So just
yeah,
like
it
they,
sounded really eerie, and like the strange little dog just seemed nervous. We're like,
Mhm.
we've never been to this location, and it was. I'm saying it's like dead in the woods. So we're like,
Yeah.
where did this Airbnb just take us?
Yeah. Well, they like they always say, like hearing a child laugh is one of the best things in the world, unless you're alone in the dark. And then you're like, a child's laugh becomes like super creepy really fast when you're like, wait a minute, I'm the only one in here. And so, so but like, but yeah, no, that's funny. Like
Oh yeah, that was
I've had experiences similar, like growing up, where I went to a crybaby bridge when I was in high school in Ohio, and me and my buddies went and thought it would be awesome. Let's go to Crybaby Bridge. It was Halloween. We went out on the bridge, and we were literally there, heard nothing. Like we never heard any babies crying, anything. We were just sitting there, and we're like, okay, let's go. Well, I get in the car and I turn on the car, turn on the light, and there's a dude standing at the end of the bridge, just standing there. Scared us half to death. Like I peeled out, we took off and we're gone. And it was a couple hours later, we're still like hearts are pounding. And then I realized there was a farmhouse like right near the bridge. And I was like, dude, man, that was like the farmer saw us pull up there and he was just like, I'm gonna scare the crap out of these guys.
yeah.
And he did. And it was like brilliant. I was like, I always wonder to go, wonder how many times he's done that to people. Like, just stood there. He just stood there, and you're like, and the lights come on. There's a guy standing there, like I almost crapped myself. And like
Yeah,
we were like,
that would be very scary.
yeah. I mean, he did nothing. Like he could have, like if he really, like we all later we realized, like if he was really trying to kill us, that we would have been dead. But like he was just there to mess with us. He saw us pull up. But I always wanted to go back and knock on his door and say, man, thank you for making one of the most scariest Halloweens I've ever had in my life. But but I never did, because maybe he was psycho and he's just waiting for us to come back. I don't know, you know. But
Yeah, there's
so
a reason babies were crying.
yeah,
Maybe it was
exactly.
him. Maybe he was the cause.
Yeah, he probably was like, is it? Yeah. So now this is your first book that you've done, correct? Do you
Correct. Yes.
no, are you planning to do a second?
I was just working on that the last couple of weeks. And I'll tell you this, when I started the first one, and it's a learning experience, but there's a lot of excitement to it also.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I kind of feel like I blazed through this one fairly quick.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it's like, I don't know, it's like a fight, like I trained up, I fought through it, and I got to the or a race, I guess, and I got to the finish line, or I heard the last bell, and it was such a relief. And getting everything posted out, and it's published by Zombie Media, so I will say that I didn't self-publish, but
Mm-hmm.
Thomas at Zombie Media kind of coached me through what to expect and how to form. He helped me a whole lot. So
Mm-hmm.
all the excitement, and the first time you open the box and see a copy of your own book is really exciting.
Yeah.
And that didn't go away, but it's like now that I'm trying to start over, it's like this exhaustion. It's like, oh man, I have to start putting the first brick down from my house that was just, and there's things obviously I learned the first time around that I'm trying not to duplicate. And I've taken a little bit of feedback from people who read it on what they liked, and I'm not gonna just, I'm a musician too, and I do a lot of other hobbies, but you don't let people just fully influence your creativity, but it's a good idea to listen
Mm-hmm.
to constructive criticism. So there were things I was going to do different this time. So I have started the second one, and it's going to be very similar to this. It'll be another anthology of short stories, but I'm thinking that where this one has 19, the next may not have as many, but be the same size book, hopefully, but have fewer stories just because they run a few pages longer.
Okay.
That was one of the criticisms I had on this from a couple people were that just not that they didn't enjoy the stories, but they wish they would have maybe went a little longer. There's a couple
Mhm.
pretty short ones, so and some people like that because of their attention span. You know, they're like, well,
Yeah.
I like the little bite-sized stories because I can sit down for 5 or 10 minutes and finish one, and then put the book
Mhm.
down. So we'll see how it goes. I've got notes just all over a notebook, just lists, and I'm marking out ideas, coming up with new ones, reorganizing. Just so sometime this week, I hope to finish. I have like two and a half of them written already.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So hoping to find time to get that rolling soon and maybe start the fire back up.
Wow, very cool. Now, being from like the South, there's a lot of folklore and stories and monsters in that area. I'm curious, what is one of your favorite? I'm going to ask you two different things, but like, what is one of your favorite monsters from the South, Southwest, and Southeast that, or just the South, like that you've
Okay.
growing up, you're always like, I love that monster, and that you wished
Well,
was real.
that I wish was real. Ooh.
Yeah. Like, I guess that's a question. Like, of all the monster stories that are down there, which is the one you really wish is true?
Maybe Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Like some of those are there's a lot of those local,
Yeah.
you got ghosts.
Hmm.
But I've had a couple unexplained encounters with the paranormal, but if I had something was real, maybe Bigfoot. That just seems like apparently he doesn't harm people in
Yeah.
90% of the story. So, but yeah,
He's just hanging
everybody's.
out.
Oh yeah. There was one story I remember as a kid. I think it happened in like the 30s or 40s where they say this old guy, and it's like a couple miles from where I'm at now, had this, and the house is still there. There's an old house, and he had a flatbed truck, and he heard a bunch of noise one night, and he looks out the window, and there's this big, that the word Bigfoot didn't exist back there, but he just said it was just like this big bear. He said, what is it be his granddaughters told me was that he said it looked like just a big bear with the face of a man jumping up and down in his truck, and it just ran off into the woods. Then that was one of the earliest ones I heard about Bigfoot, and I just that was cool. And then there's another I think happened in the 70s. Around here now, a lot of the roads are paved. They used to be dirt, and some of the bridges were wooden. And there's an old story of a guy coming home, I think, from his girlfriend's house, and he crossed one of these bridges down in this low swampy area, and this big hairy thing came out and stuck his hand. Like I think his motorcycle cut off. Yeah, that's what it was. It died trying before it went up the hill, and when he cranked it back up and the light came on, this big hairy thing was standing there about to put its hand over the light. He jetted off to a nearby house where the lady who's told me the story lives, and said the guy she was married, they were a young couple, and said this guy laid in the floor of their bedroom basically shivering all night, just so terrified that he wouldn't go home. So those are a couple local stories. So that's
Yeah.
and like you always had a grandmother tell you, when it starts getting dark and you need to go home, or you're trying to go, and they'll say stuff like, "Don't let the booger get you,"
Yeah.
and I never associated that with Bigfoot recently, but they used to scare the crap out of me.
Yeah. What is it? The Downy booger? Is that what they or is that? I know I've heard of the Downy booger. Is it boogers like just in general what they called it? Like,
Yeah, it was just "don't let the booger get you" is what they
yeah.
always said. But I always thought of something different when they said. I didn't think of like Bigfoot. I thought of like, I don't know, just something like some
Hmm.
old white face booger man or something. It's gonna
Yeah.
get me. It was a little different, but that's a good way to run home fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything chasing you in the dark, yeah, that'll get you where you need to go. And Now, also, like you said, you've had some paranormal experiences, like.
Yeah, I have, and I was just thinking about this the other day. I tell some of my paranormal stories now. Uh, that coincide with doing the movie and the book. And I remembered one the other day I haven't told yet, and it was I lived in a different house at the time that had a basement, and we had a band, and we'd built a little studio basically out of old carpet from Lowe's, and I would go down there and hit the little digital recorder device. It had like I think 8 tracks on it, and you had to punch the button. Well, anyway, so I was listening to the headphones back on the instrumental track I was making, and clear as day, like at one point you can hear it sounds like a woman's voice say, "Don't give up," and it was like super clear. And that may have been the first time I've heard an EVP in my life, and that was the better part probably of 11, 12 years ago from now. And I got my wife down there, put the headphones on her, and she could hear it too. So it's like, okay, so I'm not exaggerating here. I'm not hearing something that's not there. Like, and she was like, "Yeah, I hear that too." Unfortunately, about a year later, the hard drive burned up in the equipment, and I've lost that. But I have a couple of others from some intentional things we've done. Like, I was going to make a documentary film, and we went to a cemetery and an old historical house, and I got a couple there that in the old house, it's like steeped with like paranormal lore. It's called the Drish House. It's in downtown Tuscaloosa, and it's a wedding venue now, or you could rent it out and have events or whatever. And the people who own it refurbished it. It was basically just about to fall down, dilapidated, and they've restored it. But in there, me and a guy, because I won't do those alone. Like, so I always have somebody with me, and I don't claim to be any kind of specialist. It's like very amateur. We're like, it was just cool. We're gonna make videos in an old house, and we had equipment, and the EMF meter started peaking in certain points to red, and then when I go back and listen, I was listening to the digital recorded stuff in my headphones at full volume. The guy who was with me, David, he goes to open the door because the lady gave us full access. She said you can turn off any lights, turn on anything, go in any room. So this room now, I think maybe used to be one of the bedrooms, but it's a storage closet, like a broom closet almost. Just had decorations, brooms. So right at the part in the recording where David goes to open the door to this closet, clearly there's an EVP that comes across and says, "Shut the door." And leaving the house that night, my phone drained. Like, it wouldn't let me take any more pictures, any more video. Said I was out of space, which once I got away from the house and got home, I had plenty of space. So that it was odd. It's like it just drained down the electronics. So take that for what you will. There seems to be something going on there to the point of causing technical difficulties, obviously.
That's crazy. Yeah. Paranormal stuff that like kind of that wigs me out the most. I don't know why. Like, I think it's not seeing stuff. Like, I have a buddy who loves this stuff, and he goes to all these different places, and I've gone with him like one time, and the one time I went, I was like, that was enough. We went up to Gettysburg, and we were on
I've been there.
Yeah, he told me it was like a ghost tour. So I thought we were just gonna go and hear stories, which I'm fine with. What he didn't tell me was it was a special one where actually we were gonna hold dowsing rods and we were gonna talk to ghosts. And I was like, dude, I want to do that. I don't know. Because I like, and we did it, and then some stuff happened, and things reacted to things I said, and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because I'm just ticking these things off because I'm being goofy, and then I'm just like, okay, I don't want to. I've already made a bunch of like dead Civil War guys angry. I don't want to, have them come haunt me now. But yeah, it's like Yeah,
Yeah,
those
let
kind of
me go
things.
back and add. I want to add something to what I was saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
Since you said that, we didn't claim to be paranormal people.
Hmm.
Honestly, I'm more of a skeptic on that too. Even though I've had a couple things happen, I try to find logical reasons to, explain it off. So this was for the sake of trying to make a legitimate amateur documentary. Let's go in this house, see what happens. So we didn't even try to provoke anything because I'm not for that. I'm not going to
Hmm.
go in there. We didn't go in there and be like, "Hey, is anybody here?" or speak to us. Like we literally
Hmm.
just went in the house, turned on the camera, and talked to each other like
Hmm.
casually. Just and if a device went off, like the meter went off, we're like, "Hey, this is going off," and we'd stand there for a minute. And I had a microphone, a recorder, digital recorder, and we're like, we'll check this later. Or, at one point, I think David told the story of the house, like why it's supposed to be haunted, but we didn't go in there. We didn't go in there and spend the night and do all this other stuff like a lot of these other teams that do this stuff all the time. And I'm kind of like you. I didn't halfway expect anything to happen here or the cemetery, which we did get another EVP there and had activity on the device. I'm kind of like you. Like after that little bits happened, I've kind of just thought maybe I should just stop and leave that alone. Just write books.
Yeah. It's safer. Safer.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because there's something to it, and
I did want you to like share, like I know you're on social media, and so if you want to share those so people know where they can find you.
so the book is on Amazon. You can get it
Hmm.
in uh, digital version, audio, and paperback.
Oh yeah.
And I'm probably the most active on Facebook.
All right. What's your Facebook?
I'm trying to. I started out on my Dustin Grammer page,
Hmm.
and I was making like silly reels. I did music, guitar videos sometimes, and then I did a bunch of goofy reels that I probably need to go back and delete a bunch of them because they're so hard. They're so dumb now looking back at it.
Hmm.
That they were kind of paying for digital creators there for a while.
Yeah.
But when I created Moonlight Monster Media, I'm trying to shift everything over to that page now. I'm trying to put because I did most of my initial work on my personal page. Well, I've got a lot of friends, family.
Hmm.
Um, I was in the Navy for a little while. I've got people in there that I don't see much. But that's my way to communicate with them. So that not everybody cares about uh, werewolves and Bigfoot and ghost stories and seeing me play the guitar. So I'm trying to like keep that more like I guess what a personal Facebook page should be, just
Yeah.
pictures and stuff. And I try to create this other thing over on the Moonlight Monster Media page.
Yeah.
But I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and X, but I very rarely do much with those.
Hmm.
It's mostly Facebook and Messenger.
Okay. So they can check you out there. And I'll have those links below so people can go check you out and start following those pages so they can like, see and keep track, especially like when your next book comes out, because that's gonna,
Oh, thank you for
yeah.
that.
Well, does I want to thank you for coming on. I know we got a storm coming your way, so I want to get you off before any have to deal with anything. And I definitely want to have you come back on and maybe come on and maybe tell us some more of your stories and some more stuff that you've tried and done. And definitely when you get your second book up and going, you got to come on. And maybe if you want to come on and tell us one of your stories, you don't have to read it verbatim, but tell us a story from your book. That'd be awesome. I'd love that
Oh,
because I love hearing
yeah,
stories.
I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. I've had a blast, man. It's great
Yeah.
meeting you.
Oh, do you too? It's fun.
You've been very fun to talk to. I'm going to go look your books up too because I'm very interested in the subject matter, the folklore monsters. But thank you
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'd gladly come back
Yeah.
anytime you want.
Yeah, definitely. And if you check out my books and you let me know what you think about them, I always like to get some feedback, And if you say these were dumb, that's fine. You can tell me that too. And I'm all right with that.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, again, thanks for coming on and like sharing your stories and your book. And anyone out there, go check his book out. Go check out his Facebook page and check out his stuff, and get his book, because it's like I was just reading the synopsis. I've ordered it now, so hopefully it'll be here in a couple weeks, and then I'll get my thoughts with you guys as well on it, because I'm fascinated. I love those kind of stories. And for those of you who have come on and checked us out, thank you. And again, check out Dustin's stuff and come check out my stuff as well. And remember to stay safe and keep searching.
The Fedora Files.
Check out FedoraCRT.com today.